Good afternoon. Welcome to our Facebook Live this afternoon. This is Jenny from Jemini Crafts, based in the UK. Thank you for joining me today. I'm just going to angle these slightly. I've had to put the lights on today because it's so dull here. So I appreciate you can't always see that. If I angle that, that would be better. So, there we go, that will do, just get us started. So, welcome to our coffee and card run through for this week. It is Monday the 25th of November, and this is Jenny at Jemini Crafts, and I'm going to talk you through our creations from coffee and card last week and this week. And we used two stamp sets. One was this one called Pop of Petals, which I have used a fair bit. It's a really popular set. I use it a lot for coffee and card, mainly because it's got 5 flower images here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has a butterfly as well, and it has some different leaf images, so it's perfect for coffee and card. The other set we're going to use is swirly frames, and that features different shapes of frames. So this is one in a circular format, and you'll see when I stamp it, it's not an exact circle. It's almost like somebody's sort of hand drawn it with some dots and bits and pieces in. And then the other one we're going to use, I've actually set up on the Stamparatus, and that is the one of the rectangles. But there's lots of different shapes. So there's rectangles of different sizes, there's square, there's circles, there's lines of stitching, and just some dotted lines as well. So I put those two together, and let me show you the cards that we made, and then I'll talk you through how we created them. So there were two designs. One was a square design, which is this one here. So, hi Marion, lovely to see you. So this one here I've done with Bermuda Bay, one of my favourite blues, and it has a Bermuda Bay card underneath. And I've stamped the envelope, as you can see, and also stamped the inside with a couple of the flowers. And I've used a thank you, only because I need to do more thank you cards for my lovely customers and my team. So you can see here the swirly frame. So it's quite sort of a hand-drawn design, but really pretty. You can either do it in the same colour, or you can do it in a contrasting colour or a lighter colour if you wish. So there's one. Here's one in real red. This actually would make quite a nice poinsettia, especially if you use, I think, this style of stamp. So this one here, the frame here I've done in smoky slate, added the leaves in old olive, and the flowers here in real red. This one is Flirty Flamingo, and you can see here I've used the rectangle of the swirly frames. This one is actually in crumb cake. I've used different leaves on here and the same flowers as the last one. Here's another of the square shape with the circular frame. This is Gorgeous Grape and Purple Posy card behind it, and 3 of the flowers. And then finally another one of the rectangle ones. So I've used Garden Green for the backing. This is Daffodil Delight and Pumpkin Pie, and I've used a little bit of the aqua painter to move that ink around. And I've also used one of the petal centres from the Pressed Petals suite. That's in the annual catalogue. So some quite nice designs. Very easy one to use with any flowers really that you've got, or anything else that you want to put in the corner. It doesn't necessarily have to be flowers. It could be balloons, for example, or other designs that would fit in a grouping basically together. So let me show you how we made those. Let us start with the square card, I think. Wasn't what I was going to do, but I think I'm going to start with the square card. Right, let's see if I've got enough space here. So I've mounted the circle swirly frame onto a large block. Just going to angle that up there. I know you can't see all of it. And I'm going to use Blackberry Bliss for this. So I've got a Blackberry Bliss card base. I've got a piece for the inside, a piece for the outside that we're going to stamp on, and a square envelope. Let me put those to one side for a minute. And the stamp I've chosen for this one is this one here with the little dots and everything. Okay, obviously you could use any of those, and I've just alternated really in the sets that I've used. So what I'm going to do first is stamp the flowers and punch those out, and then I'm going to do the circle. So I've got a Blackberry Bliss ink pad here. Okay, and on my stamps what I've done is I've used a permanent marker pen or a Sharpie or a blends pen to mark the bottom of the stamp, and as long as the bottom of the stamp is at the bottom edge of my card, then that will stamp out perfectly with the matching punch. So here is the matching punch, and there's the little dot. You can just see it on there. Not sure if you can see it in the light or not. And if you line that up, then it'll make life a lot easier when you come to punch everything out. So I'm going to ink this up with Blackberry Bliss. Okay, just check that it's nicely covered. And then I'm just going to stamp these in a line. So I'm going to go for 3. Obviously you could use different colours. You don't have to use all the same. But in each case, I'm putting the dot that I've got on the stamp along the bottom of the edge of the paper card. This is just standard thin Whisper White card. Then going to turn the punch over and punch that out. That's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so those are my 3 flowers there that I'm going to use. I'm now going to stamp the circle. Just put this back underneath there, and then hopefully you'll see some of that without it in the glare. So the circle I'm going to use just a light colour. So in this case I've got Sahara Sand, but you could use any of Sahara Sand, Smoky Slate, Crumb Cake, Grey Granite, or you could use the same colour as the flowers or the leaves. So what I'm going to do is move that one out of the way. I'm going to use it in a second for the sentiment. Take the ink pad to the stamp, because this is a bigger stamp, and also because it's a very fine image, you can't really see when you've inked it up. So it's much better to take the ink pad to the stamp and work it round. You're less likely to miss anything. Doesn't mean I won't, just less likely to. Okay, and I'm just going to position this roughly in the centre, like so. Nice pressure. If you want to, you could use a foam mat underneath there. Okay, but there's the image itself. As I say, it's just like somebody's drawn that. Not that I could do that in a million years and have it look sensible. Okay, then I'm going to add my sentiment, and I'm going to use my thank you. And I found it easier to do the sentiment first because, let me show you one I did. Well, not this one. I have got another one. Ah, here we go. This one here. So I did all the flowers and everything else, and then I didn't quite have enough room for my thank you without it going too high, so I made it go across the leaves, but I'd rather the sentiment was clear of that. So I've learned in our 3 coffee and card sessions to do the sentiment first. So I'm going to ink up my thank you with Blackberry Bliss, and just position that slightly over to one side, like so. There's my thank you. Now what I can do is position my flowers to work out where I want the leaves to come in. Okay, so you can just stamp the leaves in, but if you know where the flowers are likely to go, it's easier then just to add the tips of your leaves. Now, as I say, in this set there's lots of different leaves for you to choose from. My favourite is this little sort of filled in leaf with the detail. So I know really that I want mine to come sort of across that line there. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. I was quite tempted to do that in Sahara sand actually, rather than the green. So let's do that. Don't know whether it would be too bland if I do that. If it is, we can start again. So I'm going to ink up the leaf. Okay, just look and make sure it's nice and shiny so I know that it's covered all the way through. I'm going to put one in there, like so. So this is just matching the ring effectively. I'm going to have one here. So I'm not worrying about the gap here or the fact that the stalks are sticking out, because they're going to be hidden by my flowers. Let's just do another one here, like so. So now my flowers can go in here. Like so. Okay, now if the flowers are too big, what you can do, and you don't want all this layering up, is you can cut 1 or 2 of the petals off so that you've got a bit less layers going on. Entirely up to you. Okay, so 2 things I'm going to do with the flowers. One is I'm going to add a little bit more colour to those, and I can do that 2 ways. I can do that with a blender pen or with an aqua painter, whichever you happen to have to hand. So this is just on Whisper White. So what I can do is just use the blender pen, which is like our Stampin' Write markers, and all it's doing is picking up the ink from the stamp. If you can see that, like so, because this is like a very open stamp, so I can literally just use that to blend in a little bit of colour, like so. I can do the same in the middle, and because there's a little bit more ink in the middle, I'll get a deeper colour, like so. So you almost end up with a watercolour look. Okay, so I can do the same with that one. And then the other option I have is to use an aqua painter. So this one has a liquid in it which is more like, it's not a water-based one, I'm trying to think what it is, more like a glycerin base. So it doesn't wet the card. It only uses and picks up the ink that it's working on. You can use it to go straight onto the ink pad if you wish. Okay, so that wasn't dark enough and I wanted a darker piece. You can see how it will pick up the ink, like so. So it's almost like using a marker pen, and then you could let that go, use as much as you want until you get the colour you wanted. So if I wanted a deeper centre, I could do that. So different things you can do. Okay, so that's the using the blender pen. So not a blends pen, but a blender pen. You can see that's got quite a bit more ink in, so I'm just going to, a little ink goes a long way, as you can see. Just going to cover all of that in, and then I'll show you the aqua painter. So the blender pens come in a pack of 3, and they have 2 tips, one on each side. Each tip is the same, so they're the same widths of tip, but it means you can use 2 different colours at the same time. So you could have pink on one side and green on the other, or just use that one, and then if the tip begins to wear out, not that I've worn any out, it's more like to run out of liquid first, you could swap over and use the other one. So that's using the blender pen as is, blender pen adding a little bit of ink, or we can use the aqua painter, just making sure it's got some water in it, and do the same thing. So because this is a water-based ink, it's just blending like so. Because it's a larger brush head, it's covering that a lot more quickly. So 3 different looks really from one stamp. So what I'm going to do is add those on here, and I just want my bone folder, because what I'm going to do is curl my leaves up. So I think I'm going to put that one potentially in the background and have these 2 on top. So as if you're doing curling ribbon, just hold the centre of the flower and then run your petal between your thumb and the end of the bone folder. And if you turn it over, then you'll get it curling up. Obviously if you want it to curl down, have it the other way around, like so. And what that does is it will break some of the fibres in the petal cutout. Obviously once it's in an envelope, it will flatten down, may not flatten down completely, you want it a little bit flat. Obviously this would be nice in a box envelope or something. So that looks good, I'm happy with that. Just do a little bit of curling with this one. Don't want it too curled or else it'll all just get squashed up. But it's quite a different look with the different flowers on. So what I'm going to do is just position those, see what that looks like. I think I might have it like so, just going off the edge. So what I'm going to do is stick that on with some glue. Before I do that, just to make my life easier, I'm going to put the card onto our base layer. So I've got Blackberry Bliss. You could use wet glue, or I'm using a line of snail. Oops. A little bit on that top edge, bottom edge, and if you wish, a bit of luck in the middle. There we go. Check I've got the card opening the right way as I want it. Stick my base card on my layer. There we go. And then I'm going to stick these down. So I'm just going to use some wet glue so that I can manoeuvre my flowers around a little bit. So just going to add a little bit of our Tombow wet glue. I'm going to put one there so it covers in that little gap really, and then the other 2. There's one here, and then my other one. just at a slightly jaunty angle. So the nice thing about this is you've got a little bit of time to swivel these around if you wish. I'm quite happy with that as it is, like so. And then for the inside of that and for the envelope, I'm just going to stamp that flower again in the corner. That's fine, the same one I used. Here it is. So I'm just going to stamp this off the edge, and the same on my envelope. I'm going to have this on the bottom left hand side. I don't know why I do that. I think it's because the stamp goes on the right and I like it nice and even. And then I'm going to pop my leaf just next to it in Sahara Sand. So I'm just going to have that. I could mask it off, but I'm not too worried about it. So there's my envelope, and here's my inside flower. 1, 2, like so. And if I want to, again, I can just use my blender pen. Just going to switch to the other edge, so I don't want it too strong. As I say, it's just picking up that ink that's on the paper, that is all. Like so. Like that. Could do a little bit at the tip if I wished. Like so. And let's do the same for the envelope, why not? So let's hope it's not raining when this one goes out, because obviously being water based the inks will run. Just love these flowers. There we go. Right, let me put the inner in and finish this card off. So there's the envelope. Here's the inner, going to go in like that. And again, I'm just going to use some snail. It was nice to see you on Saturday, Marion. I wonder if you'd had a play with your goodies yet. Right. There we go. So there's my inside, my outside, and my matching envelope. So that's my square one. Very similar when I come to do the rectangle. I've changed colours, so let me move Blackberry Bliss out of the way and clean the ink off the leaf. So for the rectangle, I found it much easier to use the Stamparatus for stamping, mainly because it's quite a tight fit for the stamp onto my white layer. Now obviously if you were using larger cards, it wouldn't be such an issue. I'm using note cards and envelopes, and then this is the second layer in from that. So what I've done, oops, is I just added some washi tape here to show the ladies at Coffee and Card roughly where this needed to be. And then what they can do is just lift the stamp up and over and move this around if they just needed to adjust it. Because it's not an exact rectangle, you know, it's not dead straight. It's one of those things when you start trying to move it, you often seem to make it worse than better. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to put my magnet in the centre, and I'll use crumb cake again just because that's to hand. So I'm going to ink that up. Sorry if the camera is moving. Like so. and lift that over and down. Okay, now if you have dexterity issues or you have problems with your tips of your fingers being able to get that area, use the heel of your hand. You can often feel the edge of the stamp then stamping to get a really good effect. There we go. And now we have a perfect or near perfect rectangle, like so. This reminds me of, you know, in silent films, and they used to have the, like, you know, scene 1, whatever, act 2, scene 2, scene 3, with the commentary on it. That's what that reminds me of, that sort of shape. Hey ho. Show my age a little bit there. Okay. Clean that off so I don't forget that later. Let me move that out of the way. And for this one, I decided to use Mango Melody, one of my other favourite colours. Old Olive for the leaves. And this is Mango Melody. So this is going to go onto the mango layer. And then that's going to go onto a note card size like that. Okay, so just going to put those to one side for a minute, and I'm going to do the same thing as I did earlier on. I'm going to stamp my flowers. There we go. I'm going to use a different flower. I'm going to use this one here. Now this is slightly confusing because it's got 2 stains, but the bigger marker is the correct one. So, oh good. I'm really glad you've been playing with the stamps, Marion. It's always good to get them inked, and the more you play with them, the more you'll get out of them, for sure. It's very easy just to sit and look at them, isn't it? So here we go. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So I'm stamping them in the same way, like that. Like so, and I love that this one's got a little bit of sort of inbuilt shading on it. Let's clean that off for a minute. I'm going to punch those out. So again, if you've used the method of marking your stamps when you first get them, I will show a tip how to do that if you haven't marked them and you put the labels on, you've forgotten which way they go round. I will show you a way around that. Okay, so that's those 3 there that I'm going to use. So if you have got a stamp that matters which way round it goes, i.e. it's not symmetrical. If your stamps are symmetrical for the punches, you don't need to do this. But if you haven't, then what I do is I take the punch, place it in the centre of a square of cut of card, like so, and then I write on here bottom, because that's the bottom of the punch, and obviously this is going to be the top. And then if you're wondering which way round this stamp has got to go, if you turn it over, you can see exactly that that is, if I just turn that over, that's going to be the bottom of the stamp. But what you can do then is just line all your stamps up, doesn't matter which way they start, like that for example. Take this and then work your way round till it fits exactly. So this is quite close. Okay, not quite. Not quite. And that's, no, there it is, that's a perfect fit. No, it's not. Just goes to show, doesn't it? Oh, it's because I flipped it over. That's why. Okay, it's got to be the right way round. So the other way to do that, if you want, is to leave that like that, and then push this in until you get a good fit. You can just about feel it in there. but this is an easier way to do it. So what you do need to do is turn that over, because the stamp's turned over, and then you can see when you get the perfect fit. There is one clue, and that's this little petal here has got a little knobbly bit, but this one also has a little knobbly bit. So that's a useful way if you have forgotten. And then once you've done that and worked out where it needs to be, just go back in and mark your stamp in some way. Some people do the top, I always do the bottom. Just habit, I guess. Okay, so there's my 3 images. So they're going to go in here. 2, 3 somehow. I'm going to put my sentiment in there. I'm still going to use thank you, only because that's the only one I've got to hand. But this would make a nice birthday card, obviously. I'm going to do that in Mango Melody. Just make sure it's nice and shiny. If you look at it and it's shiny all over the stamp, you know you've got ink right the way across the stamp. This one is going to go in there. Like that. Nothing to stop you doing this whole card in a portrait version if you wished, like so, and have a, especially if you've got a bigger message, you could put that up the top there. Nothing to stop you doing that at all. Okay, so I'm going to work out roughly where my flowers are going to go, and I'm going to stamp my leaves. I'm just going to use the same one. I'm just going to sort of space that across that line. So I've switched colours. This is now Old Olive, one of the first colours I ever purchased, and that was Old Olive and Rich Raspberry, both of which are still around. I'm going to make this a double one here, and I might just do that there. Okay, so bearing in mind the stalks and everything are going to be covered up, so I might just do something like that. Try not to get these flowers looking the same, like so. Yep, that would work. So I'm going to stick this onto my base card first, because it's easier to do before I've got the flowers attached. So this layer is going to go onto here, and again you can use snail, or you can use tape if you prefer, or you can use our multi-purpose glue, which hopefully will be back in stock soon. I know we've had issues getting it through customs. Right, let's have a look, see. Yeah, that's perfect. Right, let me stick this onto the base card before I add the flowers. So these are our note cards and envelopes. They come in a pack of 20 cards, 20 envelopes. They are pre-scored, but I do like to give a nice crease with the bone folder. So that's going to go onto there. Just make sure you haven't got any glue or ink underneath when you turn the card over. Just have a little bit more on there, as it's a top layer. And obviously you could punch out flowers, you could cut out the flowers, punch out the leaves, sorry, or cut out the leaves in addition if you wished. Or you could use our leaf punch. So I'm going to put one in the centre, and I am just going to use the bone folder. It's getting darker and darker out there. I didn't do my weather update when I started, which is dull and wet. And it's supposed to be for the rest of the week, so they say. Still, we had a nice bright day yesterday, so I guess we can't have everything. Right, so some wet glue on the back of there, like so. A little bit on the back of this one. That's it. and then one more. And there we go. Just clear that top. So with the wet glue, ideally, unless you're using it a lot very quickly in succession, is to put the screw top back on in between if you can, and I'll explain why in a second. Like so. So you can see that the glue has a very tiny hole here where the glue comes out, and there is a little plastic pin located in the top of the top. So if you screw that down, that will always ensure that the top of that is kept clear. So if I undo that now, you can just see, you might not see, it's too small really. So if you are having problems with your glue, make sure you put that on. The other thing you can do is leave it flat so the glue's not all running back to the bottom, or use some sort of pot to hold it up. I've got a sample here, which is a particular manufacturer's yogurt pot, and that's very useful for storing your glue upside down, and I wouldn't do that without the cap on, otherwise the glue will all work its way out. Okay, so there's my finished card. I'm just going to stamp on the inside of that. I'm going to add my Mango Melody flower. I'm going to have that coming off the page. Obviously this doesn't matter where I stamp it. Like so. And an old olive leaf just coming in from the side. As it's the inner, I'm not going to worry about masking it off. The whole idea of this is it's quick and simple card. Now that looks a bit too obvious now, so I'm going to put another leaf in there. That's better. Okay, so there's my inside. There's the outside of my card, and then the last thing is to stamp my envelope, and I'll do it to match the other one. Let's get it the right way around. Just stamp that in there, and one little leaf, I think, coming up here, like so. There we go. So, yes, so a lot of my customers have problems with the glue, and you always got to go back to basics and think, okay, so it's a large bottle of glue with a tiny little hole. Okay, so what you don't want to do is squeeze it really hard, because what you're doing is you're forcing all the glue out, so it then all stops, and then if you keep applying pressure, it all spurts out in one great big lump, and then you've got glue everywhere. So I always say to people, you should only ever have one hand on the glue. You shouldn't have to do this. It's a very light touch. It's a very small hole for it to come out in. And remember, if you're getting down to the bottom of the glue and you leave the glue like this, then obviously it's going to drain down to the bottom. Now what some people don't know, it's because I don't use it very often, is that at the other end, if you unscrew it, you have another nozzle here with a glue spreader. So I'll just show you on a piece of my card here. Actually, it might need to be coloured card for you to see it. Bear with me a second. How difficult is it to find a scrap of card when you need one? Okay, so on the other end, if you shake it down, just squeeze it a little bit, okay, and then you can use that for spreading the glue. So if you've got a larger area that you want to cover, by all means use the glue spreader. Okay, so there's the same sort of sized hole here, you can see that. Okay, and then just squeeze it a little bit. It's like the old-fashioned gloy, if anybody remembers those, and then you can spread that round. If you're using the other end, as I say, just give it time for it to come down, especially if you're part of the way through the glue, and then just literally a light squeeze. You should be able to create really thin lines with this glue, like so, and that's the sort of amount you should be applying. Very often I see people do this, squeeze really hard and get a huge line like this. Okay, that's all right to do with school glue, because school glue doesn't always stick very well because it's watered down. The problem is, if you have a really thick line of glue like that, when you put another piece of paper on top, you'll get ripples because there's just too much liquid between the two layers of card or paper. I'll see if I can show you that. So this is the right amount. I always say you shouldn't be able to see the line of glue. So can you see there the profile of glue compared to these ones here? So I'm just going to put another piece of card on top. Now, it's been here a little while, so it may not show as well, but this particularly applies when you've got paper, is when you squish that, it's very often the glue will come out the side. Of course it won't for me, will it? But it can really ripple the paper up underneath, and you can often see the traces of glue. So I would definitely recommend the finest amount. Literally, you should always be able to do this type of line, like so. I think I need to do a glue class with some of my customers. That's what you should be able to do. And I haven't put the lid on in between. Okay, that's the sort of amount. You should be able to draw a music sheet with 5 lines, isn't it? Wait for that to come back down. Now, I shouldn't have said that, should I? Oh, there we go. So even that is too much, really. There we go. So that's all you need in terms of glue, a very thin amount. Okay, so I hope that's helped anyway. Right, I'm going to fold that over and stick it in the bin before it sticks to everything else. So just a small amount of glue is all you need. Okay, so let me show you those finished cards and the cards we did at class. That coffee and card, sorry. And then I have got my class cards to show you if you want to see those. So there is the one that I've just done with Mango Melody. Here is the one I did earlier, which I do rather like, which is Blackberry Bliss and Sahara Sand. And that's the matching envelope for it. So those are the ones I've just demonstrated. And then we've got a real red version, a Daffodil Delight version, gorgeous grape Highland Heather, flirty flamingo, and then finally another of my favourite colours, Bermuda Bay, and the matching envelope. So that's from Coffee and Card using Pop of Petals, which is this stamp set, and the matching petal punch. I will just show you, and also we use the swirly frames. I will just show you our cards for our class, and that's happening, the last of the classes is happening tomorrow. But if you haven't been able to get to one of my classes, I do have a class offer that you can take up, have posted to you. So this is featuring the Perfectly Plaid stamp set and the matching tree punch. So here's one of the cards. So the class bundle includes the stamp set, the punch and the papers, and you will get the cards and envelopes and everything to make up all of the cards. So this is our standard gold foil card, and all I've done is cut out the tree shape, well in fact this is a circle behind it, and run it through an embossing folder. So that is our scripty embossing folder with the text. This one is our subtle embossing folder, and I'm hoping you can see that. I can't see directly through the camera shot as it is. And Merry Christmas across the bottom. So these plaid papers have got gold foiling on one side. Here is one using watercolour paper and our pigment sprinkles. There's one version, and here's another version. And I don't know if you can see, they're highly glittered using our shimmer paint. So that's another version. And then we have this one here. So very similar, we just got a strip of the plaid papers. But here we've got the trees punched out in foil and embossed. And there's gold embossing across the top. And this one here punched out the trees, and these three are actually punched out from the tree papers. So I haven't even stamped those, but I have used the sentiment from the matching stamp set. So you can buy the stamp set and the punch for £29.50. If you buy the class bundle, it's £42.50, which includes the stamp set, the punch, and a pack of these papers, 48 papers. If you can collect it from me, then there's no additional postage to that, but you will get all the class information. If you need it posted, then because of the weight of the punch, that's the main thing, it's £3.50 on top of that. So if anybody's interested in that, just send me a message and I can get that ordered and delivered for you. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the coffee and card and a little glimpse at our last of our Christmas classes. And then in December, we're on to a completely different set altogether. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care and happy crafting. Bye.